So first we have Manny Diaz, our Commissioner of Education.
Thank you, Governor. And Governor has shown incredible leadership on education, and all the critics can do is step up and create lies or mislead. One of those, as the Governor mentioned, which was on national media and caught up on Twitter, was Randy Weingarten, the head of the National Teachers Union, claimed on Twitter that Florida had banned To Kill a Mockingbird, only to find out from our response that it's actually on the recommended list of reading for our students in Florida. So you can see where the governor is getting at. They will say we're banning books. The Florida Department of Education does not ban any books. That's a lie. It's never been true. The Department of Education has never instructed any district or school to empty or cover bookshelves, as the governor mentioned. These rumors have been bolstered by fake pictures, videos circulating on social media for clicks. And sadly, some news media have reported the obviously false stories. One of those stories, as the governor mentioned, is the Roberto Clemente book, which is a 40-page picture book about the baseball and the life of Roberto Clemente, really an American hero, not only on the field, but for his endeavors and his humanitarian missions. And we come to find out that Duval County was saying that the book was being banned, and the media was pointing to us, pointing at the governor. So I wrote a letter to the superintendent and said, what are you doing with this book, with Roberto Clemente? This book needs to be put back on the shelves. It's necessary for our students. And magically, the next morning, they said that this book was approved, the Hank Aaron book was approved. So you go to see that all they're doing is try to use this to create lies and attack our governor. What is true, however, is that pornography is absolutely prohibited from our school libraries. You heard that the governor mentioned that that is not new. That's been a statute that has been on the books in Florida. And even if this pornography comes in cartoon form, which we probably saw in some of the videos, it's still not okay for our kids. When the fact that the media on TV has to blur out the images or remove them because they might face fines, who thinks that that would be okay to have at any of our schools, especially our elementary schools? So removing clear instances of pornography and sexually explicit materials, often within arm's reach of our youngest kids, is not book banning. It's protecting our children from harmful materials. The governor gave you the stats from the survey we did at the department. The majority of these things are pornographic, clearly, without a doubt. Any rational person can see that. And the fact that we have hundreds of individuals that have education certificates at our schools, they should be able to see that as well and know what books fall into that category. So education should be focused on academic excellence, the teaching of the truth, not indoctrinating children to become political activists. Our mission is to protect the tried and true historical approach to education that is presenting children with historically accurate content, and they can make their own great decisions and their own perspective. We must use this historical approach that has been part of our country for a very long time, and it's actually what's made our country great. It's served us for generations. Unfortunately, ideology has corrupted much of the education, gotten us off track, and you can see that the critics will continue to point at both book banning and these materials that are clearly pornographic, and also they want to talk about critical race theory and try to make it part of African American history. It's not. Critical race theory is rooted in Marxism, and you hear folks say that nobody understands that, no one should speak of it. It's clear. You follow the track. It goes back to critical theory. It goes back to the Frankfurt School. It was originally created to separate people by class, and they've adapted that to race. And as the governor mentions, we don't want this in any of our schools because we don't want to divide our kids, teach them to hate each other or to hate our country. And I think that having the examples that the governor showed on the AP African American history class and those things, we're not going to allow in Florida. We're not going to back down because we have a governor that leads and has our back when we're making sure that we're protecting our students in school and making sure that they get educated and not indoctrinated. Look, at the end of the day, as a father, a school teacher, school administrator, and now the Commissioner of Education, I trust our children. If we give them accurate and factual information, I trust that they will develop critical thinking skills and they can come up with conclusions on their own. The fact that you have folks pushing this agenda, whether pornography or critical race theory, just shows that those don't have merit and cannot stand on their own. Our kids can come up with their own conclusions based on facts. And so The most important thing is we need to let kids be kids, first of all, and we need to provide them with accurate information and education so that they can grow up and develop into productive citizens in Florida. I know that there's Spanish media here, so I'll say a couple of lines in Spanish for the benefit of Spanish media. Esto claramente que el gobernador está hablando aquí, está indicando, es una mentira. De los libros, como el libro de Roberto Clemente, nunca ha sido excluido de las escuelas. Eso ha sido una decisión local, es un teatro político para tratar de atacar al gobernador y al estado de la Florida. Aquí en el estado de la Florida lo que queremos es que los niños puedan ser niños, que no haya pornografía en nuestras escuelas, en las bibliotecas de nuestras escuelas, y poder avanzar la educación y no endoctrinar a nuestros hijos y hijas. Así que le doy gracias al gobernador. Thank you, Governor, for your leadership and continuing to have Florida be the education state.
All right. And I think he, one point is when they say if you have some of this material not appropriate for schools, when they try to say that somehow like the book's being quote banned, like adults can do what they want on this stuff. That's available for everybody. Some of that stuff would not be entertaining for me, but that's fine. I mean, you have the ability as an adult to make your decisions. But 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds, to have that thrust in them is not something that's appropriate. And, also Manny just mentioned, they try to, whatever they can use a cudgel against me just because I'm a target, that's fine. I do kind of chuckle, and I mentioned it yesterday. Whatever something happens in Florida, it could have nothing remotely to do with me. If they could try to make it bad, they put my picture up there. Florida does this. They did a thing. There was a legislator that filed the bill that the media, didn't like, and I said it's not something I support. Purportedly, that bloggers would need to register with the state under certain circumstances. So they'd be reporting on this, and they'd have my picture on there when this is not a bill that I've advocated for. It's not a concept I support. I don't support, but yet they do it because they get more clicks if they can rope me into it, and that's just kind of the way it is. Okay, we have Tia Bess. Come on up.
Just a minute. Thank you, Governor DeSantis, for keeping our schools safe and keeping our children safe as well. Let's give another round of applause for Governor DeSantis. So today I stand here as a mother, a wife, a patriot, and a concerned citizen. For years I was a lifelong Democrat, but I changed my political affiliation in wake of the COVID pandemic. When my son was 8 years old, at the time, he was actually 5 at the time. Right now he's 8. My son's school required him to wear a mask, a face shield, and sit behind plexiglass. They told me that I either had to mask train my son or potty train him. At the time, he was on the autism spectrum. He was speech and hearing delayed and relied on reading lips. But how can you thrive when you can't see anyone's mouth? Excuse me. And the more I became involved with my son's education, the more I started to see behind the educational curtain. My son was just a dollar figure. He wasn't an individual. It wasn't until I said enough is enough and I stopped and I took a stand. I decided to join a group called Moms for Liberty. Now, Moms for Liberty has been receiving a lot of negative information because people think that they're just for Republicans. People look at groups like this and believe that they're just for white Americans. Well, last time I checked, we're all Americans. The more that I spoke out, the more that myself and my children became a target. We had a sitting school board member in Duval County refer to me as a token person, which is a racial slur. Does it make me a token because I want to stand up for my son's rights? Does it make me a token because my son has autism? He deserves to have the same chance as every other little boy and little girl that are born typically developing. My son deserves that right, and I decided to fight for him. But because I went to school board meetings and kept on speaking up, I was labeled not just a troublemaker, but also someone who was considered an Uncle Tom. This is my country. My father fought in Korea, and he didn't fight for this type of America. One true America. The color of my skin does not determine the amount of my parental involvement. As a mom for liberty, we don't co-parent with the government. Mother knows best, and we all know that saying. They did not say government knows best. They did not say school boards know best. They said mother knows best. I'm going to tell you a tale of two counties. See, we had to flee, and we are technically political refugees in our own county. I don't know, to think about it in America, right? We were being persecuted in our county for our beliefs, for standing up for the truth. And at the end of the day, we have to save the children. It's all about the children. They are our future. They are depending on us to stand up right here and right now. And when the history books are rewritten, what side will you be on? The books that I have here are very interesting. My daughter actually went into the school's library, because we changed counties. My daughter went inside the school library, and she found the book called A Court of Mist and Fury. She took a picture of it. She sent it to me with the school's barcode and my daughter's hand, and I'm sure I know what my daughter's hand looks like. It was not photoshopped. And we had a school board member tell us that this was misinformation. Well, I'm tired of that word, misinformation. It's called the truth. I have two things in my hand. I have a hustler. Sorry, that's my mom. Hi, Mom. I have two things in my hand. I have A Court of Mist and Fury. I have my daughter holding the magazine as well, the book, and I brought her with me. But I also have a Hustler magazine. You can't say that word. But what I want to show you is that neither one of these things that I hold in my hand is appropriate for a child under 18. When you go to a movie theater, you have to be 18 to watch a rated R movie, right? You have to be. That's my daughter clapping. When you buy an explicit CD, there's a warning on it. Where are the warning labels for these books? We all know that Grindr is an adult app for 18 and up. Why are books telling you how to upload pictures on Grindr? Inappropriate. We have to stand up and save our kids. So, as I stand here today, I have spoken to school board members. I stand fearless with my governor. I have a confession. Governor DeSantis, I didn't vote for you the first time. And I speak of this as a woman of color because we're taught that if you look like me, you have to vote Democrat. We're taught that in schools. We're taught that Republicans only care about the rich. Republicans are only white and well off. That's incorrect. That's misinformation if we're going to use that word in proper context. I must admit I was a little bit nervous at first, but I have to speak the truth. CRT does not belong in schools. It does not. And for myself, at first, I would watch the news and I said, what is CRT? I have kids. I have 3 kids. I have a farm. I have chickens, pigs, goats. I have a lot on my plate. But I had to do the research myself. Every American needs to do their own research. Don't just take the fake news and believe it. Do it for yourself. Don't take my word for it. Go buy these books yourself. We're not banning books. However, parents need to be aware of the information. We need more people in office, just like Governor DeSantis, that supports parental rights, that supports transparency in education. This is what America needs. Thank you very much.
Outstanding.
Thank you.
Great job. Great job. Thanks so much, Tia. Okay, Julie, come on up.
Well, good morning. It's an honor to be here, and I have a heightened appreciation for the opportunity to speak in a setting where I don't believe my mic will be turned off. My name is Julie Gebhardt, and I'm a mother to 6, and I have been one of those parents making regular visits to the school board. It's just a block away from here in Hillsborough County. So 3 years ago, as a parent with 4 kids in public schools, I had my head in the sand. I just would have never believed it until I saw it. My 15-year-old daughter came home from school and asked me to buy a book for her English class. No one could have prepared me for the review that I found online. Quote, graphic detail is given about the incestuous rape of an 11-year-old. The book graphically discusses prostitution, incest, rape, pornography, pedophilia, nudity, bestiality, and sodomy, end quote. But it actually doesn't end there. There was more. But I don't want to say it here. After I read this review, as you can imagine, a million questions came into my mind. Like, who put this material in the schools, and why would they do that? I began to dig, and what I found was a profoundly deep cesspool of filth. Now I have a growing list just here in Hillsborough County with over 300 books, book titles, with over 10,000 volumes just here in Hillsborough County, and that's only my personal research. There's bound to be way more. Sadly, Florida school libraries are filled with pornographic landmines. The more I dug, the worse it got. Week after week, I found myself saying, I just found the worst book yet. But lo and behold, descriptive sadomasochistic sex in the book Identical by Ellen Hopkins was not actually the worst. Incidentally, we have over 400 of her books in our libraries, all with the same themes: glamorizing drugs, sex, self-harm, and suicidal ideation. Glamorized. Can it get worse than this? How about a detailed description, multiple detailed descriptions of exceedingly violent, incestuous sexual assault by a mother and her father who raped her in Push by Sapphire. We have 10 copies here in Hillsborough County. I probably don't need to mention Genderqueer. I think everyone's familiar with that book, but of course we have that here too. Oh, and a graphic novel. You won't believe this. It depicts a satanic orgy. That is in Sumner High School right here in Hillsborough County. Volumes 1 and 2. Finally, I end on the book titled This Book is Gay, which contains detailed instructions for oral sex and every other type. This book destigmatizes pedophilia in the chapter titled The Ins and Outs of Gay Sex. The book even contains 5 steps for using a sex hookup app, telling kids that, quote, the benefits are obvious, quick, easy, and uncomplicated sex, end quote. It is in a middle school library here in town. In fact, just 2 days ago, I learned that the appeal to my original book challenge went to a district-wide committee, and that committee had head media specialists, both head media specialists of Hillsborough County, and all kinds of school district leaders with titles here in Hillsborough County. That committee came to the same conclusion as the school committee, which was to keep This Book is Gay in the middle school. Clearly, we need a strong, fearless leader to take a stand against the ideologues and hold them accountable. We must have legislation without loopholes. There are some bad actors in our schools who will try to exploit every little loophole. And it is simply not fair to hastily slap on the book banner label. For heaven's sake, huge book retailers and public libraries everywhere are proactively filling end caps with these banned books, available to anyone. How ironic. It is simply a lie to say these books are being banned. Like every school in America is banning Playboy, right? Let's hope so. This is about discretion. Schools should not be able to approve harmful literature. This is educational malpractice. We saw in November the will of the people expressed in the landslide victory for our governor. I personally voted for him in large part because of his stand with parents against the indoctrination of our youth. We are now asking our legislators and our governor to continue to do all that they can to create a safe place for our kids to learn and to hold ideologues and bad actors accountable for their decisions. Thank you, Governor DeSantis, for giving a megaphone to parents who have had their mics cut off. Thank you for fighting to protect children from school libraries that are filled with pornographic landmines. Thank you for maintaining common sense. Lastly, if it can't be printed in a newspaper, if it's illegal to hand to a child outside of school, if it can't be posted on social media, which ironically you'll be banned if you do, if it can't be shown on the news, and if it's blocked by the server from reaching the Department of Education because of the explicit content, it should not be offered to children. Thank you. And Governor DeSantis, the parents of Florida, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Dr. Stacy Hahn, Hillsborough School Board.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here today. Governor DeSantis, thank you for giving me the time today to speak and also for highlighting these issues and for busting the myths today. So when I am a Hillsborough County School Board member, and when I watched the video today and I listened to Julie just now, and I hear about these books being in Hillsborough County Public Schools, it not only makes me sad for children and parents, but it makes me very angry as a parent and a school board member. Sexually explicit material has been something I've been fighting against for the past year, specifically, obviously, in our schools. Working with organizations like CCD Florida, Lee Cardin, working with Julie Gephardt, who comes to every school board meeting. Thank you, Julie. You have a family of your own. This takes time away from her family. Your passion is inspiring to me as a school board member. It is very difficult to be in the minority on a school board. As much as I fight, I have one vote. So that's, a lot of the times, that is why you see Hillsborough County on lists where these books can be found. I have been working with countless individuals in our community, and I've been speaking with parents all across Hillsborough County who are very concerned. Parents entrust schools with their children. They trust that we'll keep them safe. They trust that we'll teach them how to read and write and do math and understand science and be good citizens. And I work very hard to do that each and every day. What they don't want is their children to be exposed, and they certainly don't expect them to be exposed to pornographic material and highly sexualized books. They don't want their children sexualized when they go to school. So I can assure you that I will continue to fight the fight, ensure that students go to school and they're kept safe, and I'll continue to work with organizations, families across Hillsborough County, across this country, and hold this district and the superintendent accountable when we do find these materials in our schools. They're not in high schools and just middle schools. We have K-8 schools where these books are in those libraries. And I often ask our district superintendent and staff, how are you ensuring that a first grader isn't pulling these books off the shelves in a K-8 library? And I don't get a very clear answer. There is no safeguard in place. That's concerning. As a parent and a school board member, I do want to thank the governor today for being here, for protecting children, for protecting parental rights. I also want to thank him because I'm so proud to say I live in Florida. I'm proud to live in a free state that is a beacon of freedom for states across this country. So I would just want to thank you all again for being here, for putting up the fight, for working together to protect our children. And I promise you, I will continue to do the very same thing from the dais as a Hillsborough County School Board member each and every day. Thank you again, Governor DeSantis.
Thank you. And I think the main issue is what both the last few speakers have pointed out, how inappropriate it is to be having this. Kids should not be exposed. Parents don't want that to happen. But, you know, it's also an opportunity cost with the school. Every minute you spend focusing on some of this pornographic stuff, that's less time you're spending on doing the things that really matter to our kids in terms of them getting the education they need and math and reading and all these other things. And so it's the only way you make that decision, in my judgment, is if you're putting your own agenda ahead of the well-being of the students. And that's what we see too often. Well, these issues are important. Probably the belly of the beast, or one of them, has been down in Broward County. And we had a shakeup on that school board in basically it was a response to the Parkland massacre. When I became governor, we removed the sheriff of Broward County, and then we started a statewide grand jury looking into Broward and other districts about their school security practices. The report ended up finally coming out. It's like they really worked to delay it, recommended the suspension of, I think, 4 or 5 Broward school board members, and so we would do that. We were able to get really a reform board in there for the first time in a long time. And they've had elections, so it's shaken back up a little bit, but Tori Alston has been there really fighting the fight in territory that sometimes is difficult. Although I would say we did a lot better in Broward than Republicans used to do. So maybe the times there are changing. So Tori, come on up.
Good morning, everyone. And thank you, Governor. I am honored to join you for this conversation. I am honored to stand with you today as we clearly correct many of the false narratives that I've heard around the state and around the country, and particularly down in South Florida. As a former Broward County Commissioner and former chair of the Broward School Board, and still serving on the board, Governor, thank you. I know your heart, Governor. I've seen your bold vision, having worked under your leadership in state government. In Broward Public Schools, I too have seen inappropriate material in our classrooms, and I'm proud that we removed graphic material that no one in elementary or middle school should have been exposed to. As a father of a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old, and just like other parents, we know what's best for our children, and we trust our kids, and we must continue to empower our parents. Let me be clear. The narrative also on, quote, book bans on Black history or key Black leaders in our public schools is completely false. In Broward schools, the nation's 6th largest school district, Governor, it's completely false. And I know personally. As an African-American leader in South Florida, I have been very clear. This administration supports African-American history, as we know that actual African-American history is a significant part of American history. This administration supports Black history, women's history, Hispanic heritage, along with so many other key parts of our country's rich history. As one of several conservatives on the Broward School Board, I can attest, Governor, and you're right, that the law was passed back in the mid-1990s mandating African-American history instruction in all school districts, and it is alive and well. In Broward County Public Schools, we are 100% compliant. I know the governor and this entire administration supports following state law, and I will continue to work with my colleagues down in Big Blue Broward, but we've cracked it a little bit, Governor, to ensure that we do our part. Governor, you can count on us down in Broward. As I close, Governor, thank you for again being very clear that sexual and graphic material has no place in our classrooms. Thank you for your boldness and leadership, clearly outlining that inappropriate material has no place for a 1st grader or a 6th grader. And thank you, Governor, for correcting this narrative on many of the, quote, book ban myths that we've heard all across the state. Governor, I am always proud to stand with you, and thank you, sir, for your leadership.
All right, great job. Thank you. Okay, Glenn Gilzine, Central Florida Urban League.
All right. So, the challenge is, when you go last, everybody takes your talking points. Everybody takes everything, right? I want to thank the governor, thank the commissioner for your outstanding leadership. But I got to start off with this one quick quote. There comes a time when we must take a position that is neither safe or popular. But we must take this because one's conscience says that it's the right thing to do. Those were words from Dr. Martin Luther King. I stand here as an advocate for low-income black kids. Our community is in dire need of the right type of intervention. We need to focus back on the basics: reading, writing, math. Here are the facts. Yeah, that's true. Here are the facts. I come from Orange County, Central Florida. Over 65% of black kids can't read on grade levels in grade 9 through 12. That number is even worse, where 80% of black kids can't do math on grade levels. The achievement gap is so wide it's roughly 30% between black and white kids. Where's the march? Where's the protest? Where's the outrage for the facts, other than the fact that we're focusing on false narratives and false media? I work for a nonprofit organization that relies on donations. I wrote an op-ed standing up and stating the truth, and I tell you, I had donors call and cancel my donations. I had people call the National Urban League to get me fired. I've even received a letter in the mail that said my days are numbered, right? But you know what? I stand here because I'm doing what's right. We're here because we're doing what's right. So yes, I stand with our governor as he makes record investments, and also our commissioner, as he makes record investments to close the achievement gap between black and white kids. Yes, I stand here with our governor as he fights for education freedom for all students, making sure that all kids get access to school choice and all the other items as needed. So let's do what's right. Let's not get caught up in the fake narratives and the headlines. Let's focus on the children, and let's focus on the facts. Thank you, Governor, for your leadership. Thank you, Commissioner.
Good job, man. Thank you. Well, I just say, I think we've had an excellent group of speakers today. I think it's all been very persuasive and really, I think, invigorating and unifying to say that we've got a lot of work to do. Let's do the basics. Let's get the basics right in our schools and make sure that our kids are able to thrive, and let's not allow the type of stuff that you saw on that screen before we started this press conference. And I think if we had the entire state of Florida somehow either sitting in here or watching that, I don't think there'd be very many people who, honest to goodness, believes that what was up there is appropriate for our schools. So I said we just started the legislative session yesterday. We were able to, we've got big opportunities ahead of us. We have are in kind of an enviable situation as a state. I mean, we're the fastest growing state, #1 in net in-migration, #1 for education freedom, #1 for new business formations, #1 for economic growth amongst large states, second lowest tax burden, second lowest debt burden, big surplus, on and on and on it goes. And honestly, we could just rest on our laurels if we really wanted to, but that's just not the right thing to do. So we're going full speed ahead. We've got great stuff on the horizon over the next few months. And as I said yesterday, you ain't seen nothing yet. Well, I don't think that that's off the table. I mean, I think Cord Bird, the Secretary of State, has been running this to ground. If there's action on behalf of somebody, I think we would want to take it. Look, the whole idea of Eric, if it worked well, could be good. I mean, for example, you have someone that votes in Hillsborough County that also has a place in New York. If you have Eric, you can figure out pretty easily if they've also voted in New York. So that was why we joined it, because we didn't want to see double voting. In Florida, we're a transient state. People come and go. We obviously attract a lot of migration. So there was reasons why we wanted to do it. But the way they're using that data has been very, very concerning, and not just violating the confidences and the privacy, but using it for partisan purposes. And so it was recommended to me that we withdraw from it. I think that that was the right decision, but that does not mean there will not be follow-up actions on this matter. Well, so here's the thing. The curriculum transparency law was signed last spring, right? So this is not anything new. We've empowered parents. I did press conferences saying that we want to do that. So this was not anything that should have waited this long. But just think about it. Okay, if you have books in a classroom and maybe it's like a middle school thing and you have the life of George Washington, does that really take a thorough review of that? No. You have the life of Frederick Douglass. Does that really? No, it doesn't. Okay, so I think some of this that was being done, and I don't necessarily know about Manatee, but I can tell you in Duval what they were doing, it was intentionally trying to create friction and trying to create issues to then act like something was wrong in the state of Florida. And that stuff is not something that's going to take a rocket science to figure out, shouldn't be in the schools. And if you are familiar with Florida law, because one of the things they were saying to try to make a narrative about the African American history was, oh, Stop Woke Act, you can't discuss racism. So if someone had that is totally false. And in fact, the Stop Woke Act said you must discuss discrimination. And so that knocks out a lot of those objections right off the bat were some of the ones they were trying to say. So you really don't have a lot there other than things that are just patently inappropriate, and that's just kind of the nature of it. But most schools didn't have an issue with this because they saw that the transparency was in effect, and they made sure that they were in order. And a lot of them, to be fair to them, because I know, I mean, like some of the stuff in Hillsborough is concerning. There's no question about it. But the vast majority of the school districts in Florida are not ordering those books. I mean, that's a good thing that they're not trying to do that. So we're focusing on some of the problems, and we need to rectify those. But we should also just point out that the vast majority of school districts have been doing it right, and they've been sensitive to what's appropriate and not appropriate, and I think the parents are pleased in many parts of the state. I think the Cuban regime has been a crime against humanity. I think that they extinguished people's liberties and freedom on the island of Cuba. I think that the folks that have fled that regime, their descendants, particularly in southern Florida, because of that experience, have represented the beating heart of freedom in this state, because they understand that it could all be taken away. And so to wheel in a Cuban ambassador who's an ambassador from a corrupt totalitarian regime and acting like we have anything to benefit in Florida from that, no thank you. I think they should go back to Cuba where they belong. So we've actually been working on this for many, many weeks. So Novak Djokovic, I think as you guys know, number one tennis player, one of the best ever. He is being discriminated against because he didn't take the mRNA COVID jab. And he never wanted to do it from the beginning. And you know what? There are people in Florida who never wanted to do it, and we fought for your right to make that choice without losing your job or having this stuff. And so not only has he not wanted to take it, we now have the data to show these booster shots aren't preventing you from getting infected. People get infected anyways. And so, it's like, okay, now you have this rule, and we're one of the only countries in the world that has this rule that you have to show shot records to come in as a foreign visitor on an airplane. Never mind, Djokovic has already had COVID. There's something called natural immunity, which the CDC didn't want to recognize, but we all know is a fact of life. And so he poses zero risk to the United States, zero risk to the state of Florida, and zero risk to Miami. So he should be allowed to compete. Now, I would run a boat from the Bahamas here for him. I would do that 100%. But I think his people are looking at it, and I'm not sure that's the way they want to come into the country, which I understand. I think it'd be a great moment, but nevertheless. So, but we've looked at the rules, and this is all executive fiat. Congress never passed any of this. They wanted to take your job if you didn't get the shot. Congress never passed that. That was executive fiat by the Biden administration. That's not the way this country is supposed to be governed. But so that's what the rules are of what they laid down. So we think that coming by boat may be okay, even under Biden's existing framework. So I've written a letter saying, let him come in. But if you're not letting him come in by plane, at least confirm to us, not really because I care, but I think his camp wants to know, that he could come by boat and it would not be in violation of anything that you've done. And so we'll wait on a response on that. But at the end of the day, how unscientific is it to impose this ridiculous mandate? And the thing is, the state of Florida, we thrive off a lot of the foreign visitors and the tourists. This has put a crimp into that, because there's people on a matter of principle that don't want to have to show their shot records either way. And I get invited to visit foreign countries all the time, and we haven't done it since COVID, because the first question I ask is, are they going to require us to test or show papers or anything like that? I'm not doing it. I'm just not doing it. And I know a lot of people feel the same way. But it is wrong to discriminate against somebody based on the choice they've made regarding this. It was wrong when the shots first came out and everyone said that they were going to work and end COVID. It was wrong then, and we said that then. We actually banned vaccine passports in early 2021 in Florida. We were the first state to do that, because you have people, I had a lot of people that were just, between 18 and 45, not at high risk. Many of them have had COVID, and they're telling me, I don't want to do this. But yet, if I don't do it, if they start having passports, I can't go to a movie theater or a game? And that's what they wanted. That was the vision, Fauci's vision, to basically marginalize people who didn't bend the knee. And so we rejected that. But it is wrong to discriminate against people on this basis, and it's especially wrong today, after we've been through this for a couple years, and after we've seen massive waves occur even amongst people that had gotten shots and boosters. And so let's just get real here. It's wrong to discriminate, period, on this basis. But how unscientific is it to cling to this particular mandate when we know that people are getting infected and people are spreading it, regardless of the booster shot? So I hope he's able to play. I hope the president will, not necessarily even grant him special. I think what he should do is just repeal the rule. It's not a good rule, and it's not something that makes sense. And we're one of only a handful of countries that do it. But I would just reflect on this: the fact that they're still clinging to the fact that they were in court down in Miami a month or two ago, arguing for the reinstatement of the air travel mask mandate. They want that reinstated. They were arguing for that. The fact that they're still trying to do that, what I think that could tell you is, if it wasn't for Florida standing up and saying no, they would have won on those issues and so many more issues. We would be in a situation where you would have to be showing these papers to go to a different state or all these other things. We would basically be in a biomedical security state. And Florida was the impenetrable roadblock to the Faucian vision that they had for this country. And so it's not just, I had to lead the charge, but we had a lot of Floridians who took pride in us bucking these elites and us saying, not on our watch. Okay, thanks, everybody.